So in the first part of our Module 7 here, we're going to go over how do you use compliance tools and resources. And very specifically, we're going to dive into the compliance matrix and the checklist. So the compliance matrix is essentially a document outlining all of the needs for the proposal, all of the requirements, where they fit within the sections, the instructions on how to fill that out. And it also includes things like markers for who created that, who checked it, when it was checked, when it was created. It's a really kind of great tool to know what is the current status of the proposal, who's been working on it, what was that last touch point, what are the things that you really need to kind of finish off and finalize in order to have a complete proposal. So along with all of the requirements, kind of some instructions on those, what do you do? It also typically will include the formatting. So if there's any specific formatting from the agency, which there always is, it'll cover required number of pages, any formatting on the text, the size of it, the font family that's allowed, margin setup. It is really your one-stop shop to be able to look at your proposal as you're developing it and know exactly what you have to put in there, what goes in there, how it needs to be arranged, how it needs to be designed, and just how do you move forward with having a proposal that speaks towards that agency's needs. So let's take a really quick live look at a compliance matrix. So this is an example of a compliance matrix. This was one that we created for the NSF FY21 submission. And this is an SBIR compliance matrix. So as you can see with the compliance matrix, you have here the fields, the requirements from the RFP, the page, section, and paragraph where you can find that information in the RFP, where it has proposal volume, section, page, and paragraph. That's actually where it is within the proposal package. So as you're creating it, being able to mark out where people need to pay attention to the information to verify that it is complete and it answers all of the requirements and criteria. And then any people you've assigned this to. So if you're a one-person team, and obviously it's going to be yourself, but if you're working with multiple people who are creating the proposal package at the same time, it's a really great just kind of ownness and comparison tool for being able to go, well, we need this worked on, who's on this, let me see where they're at, let me see, you know, what the holdup might be, any struggles they're going through, any pitfalls, roadblocks they've run across. And then if you want to assign a due date, and then the status. So as you can see from like our compliance matrix here, anything highlighted in green is actually a form. So for NSF, they have that project pitch. This is a form that's filled out. It gives all of the information, kind of background about the project pitch. And then if you see here, it actually goes down into what is required. So you have to put in contact information. You have to actually pick a topic area. And then when you're typing it up, you have a section for technology innovation. It gives you the requirements here, tells you it's 500 words or less, and it also tells you what you have to do in that section. So these compliance matrices actually should speak towards the entire proposal package. So it's not just your narrative, it's not just your project pitch, it's not just your summary, it's everything that makes an entire complete SBIR or STTR proposal package. And anything that's marked in yellow is actually a requirement. So for the project summary here, it is a one-page maximum. So it's highlighted in yellow because that's all you can do there. And it just really kind of breaks down everything on a easy to digest level to know where you are, if you've met that requirement, have you answered all of the questions? Like here in the elevator pitch, you have to describe the customer, you have to describe the value proposition, and you have to describe the innovation. But even then, you have certain criteria that they want you to cover within the customer. So describe the customer, what's the customer need or market pain point that you're addressing. You have to have both of those elements to be able to say, okay, this section is complete. This covers what is required. And as I mentioned, it's an entire proposal package. So anything beyond the technical narrative, like if they have a reference as cited, how do you arrange that reference as cited? How do you upload it? What do you do with it? Where do you go? Where do you put it? Biographical sketches. It really is just a way to know, glance at this, see what's required, see all the different elements, and if you can't put a status as complete, you probably don't have that element and you are not ready to submit. So the compliance matrix is a great tool as you're creating the proposal package, as you're putting everything together, as you're typing it up, as you're filling it out, as you're making sure that before you send that out to like a third party for review, that you have everything there. But it's kind of unwieldy. Typically they're very long, probably 20 pages or more, just because it does go into so much depth about the requirements. So once you have the compliance matrix and you have that filled out and you go to upload it, well, wouldn't it be great to have that final verification? And that's why we have checklist. So the checklist is that final completion step. When you are ready to submit, when you say, I have everything, everything is here, I am ready to submit, that's the point that you want to bring up this checklist. Whereas the compliance matrix goes into detail about where stuff is, where it goes, what the requirements are, the checklist is that final just verification and completion. You should be able to go down the checklist item by item and put a X in that box. If you cannot put a check in that box, then it's probably not complete. You have something that's missing. You have something that isn't there. And you only check that item off if you've been able to verify that it has everything you need. And obviously there's a question on that. So let's do a live look at a checklist now. So this is the checklist. As you can see, the checklist is a lot briefer, let's call it, than the compliance matrix. Whereas the compliance matrix was 20 pages, this is, well, it feels weird to say only 7, but it is only 7. And before, again, you make sure that things are in there before you've actually checked these off, just do a final glance at it. But it's laid out very similar to how the compliance matrix is, where you have all of the different requirements, you have what a certain section has to include, and you're just checking off that, yes, this is complete, yes, this answers the requirements, yes, this speaks to the criteria. So like here, we have our technology innovation within the project pitch. It's 500 words or less. Did you actually do a word count on that section to verify that it is 500 words or less? If so, you put a check in it. That a description has been provided of the innovation, that would be the focus, and it talks about the origins. Did you cover both of those items? Then you'd go ahead and put a check in it. And just like the compliance matrix, this is set up for the full proposal package. So everything that is part of the package has its own heading here, it has its own kind of subheadings, it has its own checkboxes, it has its own information and its own requirements that you can check off. If there are multiple things that they're looking for in a section, it'll also have those multiple items listed out. Remember our elevator pitch, so we had the 3 different bubbles there of information that you had to include. So here, customers, the first section, describes the expected customer of the innovation and includes their need and market pain points that will be addressed. So if you remember, that was the requirement for the customer in our compliance matrix. So you look at it again, read it carefully, make sure that everything seems right, make sure it's grammatically correct. If you did cover those 2 requirements, describe the customer, describe the pain point or the market need, then you would go ahead and put a check in it. Now, before you submit, you should review your checklist to make sure that every single box has a check mark in it. If you do not have a box with a check mark, there is a box that is blank, and that means that the proposal package is not complete. You're not ready for upload, you're not ready for a submission. So it's just one of those things to make sure that everything you're putting together actually answers all of the needs and that you're not going to get bounced out for something like an administrative review. So this was just a really kind of brief overview about some of the tools and resources that we have and how to use the compliance matrix and the checklist. Again, these have been designed to make sure that you're adhering to requirements, you're adhering to criteria, and you answer the needs. If you go through these and you don't fill them out correctly, you don't fill them out all the way, you submit with items that are missing, these are kind of that buffer against that. Because if you do submit with items that are missing, then the next phrase you're going to hear is returned without review. And that's going to be because you got bounced out during the administrative review process. When it's returned without review, that means that all of the work you put into the package, all of the development, everything you typed, all the research you did absolutely nothing at all because nobody even looked at it. Even if you're, kind of creating a draft and you're getting close to the submission deadline and it's not entirely complete, but you want to have somebody review it, you want to have somebody look at it, you just want to see what is out there and what your chances are. You want to get some reviewer comments and feedback. Make sure you at least maintain that all of the big requirements are in there. If there is a document that's required, that document is part of it. That's the only way it's going to get reviewed, is if at least all of the documents are in there. Now, when you get reviewer comments back, they're probably going to point out the glaring holes and the mistakes in the proposal package, but at least give you an idea if it's something that that agency would be interested in.